A guten Erev Shabbos, my holy sisters and brothers. Shabbos is almost here. Thank God. Let's light up the darkness. Who is with us on a Friday afternoon? Yehudit in South Carolina, Lucy in Minnesota, Renee in Indiana. Is that Ruth in Kentucky? Gordo in Scotland. So good to have you. Saying it's so good to have you back, Salanina. Bill in mid-Missouri. Melissa in Great Neck, Shandora in the Bronx. Over there on the YouTube side, Nancy, still at work. She's going to catch the replay. And Marjorie in Atlanta. Welcome, everybody. Couple of things. Today's episode of AT Daily is sponsored by Cheryl Nelson in Phoenix. And what does Cheryl say? Cheryl says, in honor of Nina Litvak. I couldn't agree more. Cheryl, thank you for enabling us to share more Torah with more people around the world. May you and all your loved ones be blessed with unlimited blessings today, tomorrow, and every day. Thank you so much. We appreciate the support. Nina will put the donate link in the comments. We never really ran our annual campaign at the end of the year. It was ongoing, but every December we try to call everybody who's a supporter so that they can, support us again. And we were shooting the movie. We were just so beyond swamped. We weren't able to do that. But we're a nonprofit organization and our coffers are low. So now that there's a little bit more time, we're going to try to work our way through the call list. It's still the 2022 annual campaign, even though we're in the second month of 2023. But if you enjoy what we do, if you appreciate what we do, if you'd like us to be able to share more Torah with more people around the world, please support our 501c3 nonprofit organization. The link is donate.accidentaltalmudist.org, and we really appreciate your support. Okay. Also, it's Friday. If you're on Facebook, you might have seen the meme, the little meme that I shared today. It's a great teaching. I think I mentioned it yesterday and made a meme out of it today. You cannot see your reflection in boiling water. Cool off first, and then you'll know what to do. And I made a little meme out of that, and we sent it out on Facebook page on Friday, on Instagram. But I also send it out to all my friends directly on WhatsApp. Every Friday, I send a little Friday message on WhatsApp. And you can actually join the Friday, Good Shabbos WhatsApp group if you're on WhatsApp. Nina will put that link in the comments. We also shared it a week or two ago on Facebook if you scroll back in our feed. But I think Nina will find that link and put it there. And you can just, if you have WhatsApp on your phone, you can just directly join. And then you'll get that message directly from me. No need for social media. And quite a few people have signed up for that. Okay. Where are we holding? We're in Tractate Nazir. I always used to say the somethingeth number tractate of the Talmud, and I'm not sure which is Nazir. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. The 17th volume of the Talmud. So we're in Tractate Nazir, the 17th volume of the Talmud. We're in chapter 2, and today we're covering Mishnahs 3 and 4. Very interesting Mishnahs as we're going to encounter. And recall that the vow of a Nazir, it's spelled out in the Torah. This is somebody who wants to hold himself or herself to a higher level of sanctity. Unnecessary, not even desirable. According to our sages, you shouldn't vow to abstain from things that are permitted to you, except in very rare cases. But if one takes on this vow, then he is vowing to abstain from all products of the grapevine, not to make himself impure by touching a corpse, not to shave or cut one's hair for the term of the Nazir, of the nazirus, and at the end, to bring the offerings that are necessary when one concludes a term of nazirus, and you can only do that when the temple is standing, and that's why we don't do this anymore, since the temple, was destroyed almost 2,000 years ago. Okay, so Mishnah number 3. If they poured one a cup of wine, and he said, I am hereby a Nazir, and therefore will refrain from it. Right? So somebody poured you a cup of wine, the wine is standing in front of you, and then he says, I am hereby a Nazir, and therefore will refrain from it. So this guy understands what nazirus is, right? Unlike the previous 2 Mishnahs, where we had confused people saying, I'm hereby a Nazir, and therefore will abstain from figs. This guy understands. There's wine in front of him, and he says, I am hereby a Nazir, and I will abstain from that glass of wine, this particular one right here. Did he become a Nazir? He's only, since he mentioned this specific glass. We know that if he just said, I am hereby a Nazir, bli neder, I'm just teaching. If one said, I am hereby a Nazir, he didn't specify how long he's going to be a Nazir for, he becomes a Nazir, and he's a Nazir for 30 days. But this guy said, I am hereby a Nazir, and I will abstain from this glass of wine that's in front of me. Did he become a Nazir? The Mishnah says, he is a full-fledged Nazir who must observe all the halachas, all the laws of Nazirus. An incident occurred with regard to a certain woman who was intoxicated from wine. And they poured a cup for her, and she said, I am hereby a Nazir, and therefore will refrain from it. Now, she's made the exact same statement in the exact same situation. There's a glass of wine right in front of her, and she says, I am hereby a Nazir, and I will abstain from it. What is the difference in circumstances between her case and the first case in the Mishnah? The man in the first case was just in front of a glass of wine. This woman is in front of a glass of wine, and she's drunk. How does that affect the outcome? The sages said, this woman did not intend to accept nazirus, but rather she meant to say, it is hereby forbidden to me as an offering, meaning she took a vow using the description, the analogy of nazirus. She took a vow against deriving benefit from that cup alone, since she didn't want to drink anymore. In other words, what she really meant in that situation, in that context, she meant to say, I am like a Nazir with respect to that glass. I won't drink that glass. I vow not to drink that glass. I'm like a Nazir before a cup of wine who can't drink it. But she didn't mean to take on nazirus and a full term of nazirus. That's the Mishnah. Here's the Gemara. The Gemara asks, was an incident cited to contradict the previous ruling? You said in the first clause of the Mishnah that if one said that he is hereby a Nazir and therefore will refrain from a cup that was poured in front of him, then he is a Nazir. And the Tana then teaches, right, the rabbi of this Mishnah then teaches, an incident occurred with regard to a certain woman who said, I am hereby a Nazir and therefore will refrain from drinking that glass of wine. But the sages interpreted that as a vow, rendering that particular cup forbidden to her like an offering, right? This is konam to me. She actually, they're saying that she didn't say like a Nazir. I'm adding that as an interpretation. They're saying that it is similar language, that cup of wine is like an offering, meaning that cup of wine, if it had been consecrated as a gift to the temple, then she would not be allowed to drink it. Same thing, right? It's a vow, meaning that cup is prohibited to me. You can either say, I vow that cup is prohibited to me, or I vow that cup is like an offering for me. I can't drink it because it's consecrated. Or you can even say, that cup is like an offering to me. And as we saw in Nedarim, that would create that situation, that it's a vow. If you say it's like an offering, what you've really done is taken a vow that you will not drink from it. In any case, that cup. So because she's intoxicated, we're reading more into the facts of the situation, and the sages said she didn't mean to become a Nazir, she just meant to say that cup is prohibited to her. So apparently it is only with regard to this cup of wine that it is forbidden to her. Consequently, any other wine is permitted and she is not a Nazir. Right, that's what the Mishnah said. So the Gemara says, the Mishnah is incomplete. Right, so why do we have this distinction? Why is it that the fact that she's intoxicated changes the outcome? Hold it. Okay, why does that change the outcome? By the way, I don't know about you, but sometimes like my screen says like the show ended, but the show didn't end. And if I just refresh Facebook, the show is still right there. I don't know why it does that. So if you ever think like I ended prematurely, try refreshing the page. Okay, so the Gemara explains that the Mishnah is incomplete. And what is it really teaching? It's teaching like this. If they poured a cup of wine for a person and he said, I am hereby a Nazir and I will refrain from it, he is a Nazir. And if he is intoxicated and they pour a cup of wine for him and he said, I am hereby a Nazir and therefore will refrain from it, he is not a Nazir. Okay, that's what we've got so far. We understood that. We read it correctly. So what is the reason for this? He is considered to be like one who said, this cup is forbidden to me like an offering. Right, exactly. Okay, if he's intoxicated, he didn't intend to become a Nazir, and it's as if he said, this cup of wine to me is like an offering. But what did he actually say? I am a Nazir and I will abstain from it. So how do we get to you're intoxicated, you made that statement, and the sages are going to interpret your statement, I am a Nazir and I'll refrain from it while I'm intoxicated, as that cup is like an offering to me. How do we get there? So the Gemara asks, and if you would say that this was his meaning, why didn't he say so explicitly? Why would he say, I am hereby a Nazir and therefore will refrain from it? And the reason is because this person is thinking, if I specify this cup, they will bring me another cup, right? If I say that cup is to me like an offering, they might bring him another cup. Okay, you can't drink that cup. Have this cup. So, and they will aggravate me by keep offering me cups. It is better that I say to them this statement, I am a Nazir, which is definitive to them, and they will understand that I do not want to drink any more wine. The Mishnah continues, and an incident also occurred with regard to a certain woman who was intoxicated, and she took this vow, and the sages explained her statement accordingly. So we have this leniency that in this situation where it's somehow clear, at least clear to the sages, that this person never intended to become a Nazir. He was using the language of the nazirus vow just to get people to stop offering him alcohol. So he didn't intend to become a Nazir. He just said that the wine in front of him is like an offering. It's like it's consecrated. I won't drink any more tonight. He brought in the language of Nazirus, but he never meant to become a Nazir. So he's not a Nazir. Mishnah number 4 here in chapter 2. If one says, I am hereby a Nazir, on the condition that I will be allowed to drink wine and may become ritually impure from corpses. If you're a Nazir, you cannot drink wine and you cannot become ritually impure from corpses. So this is another case of a confused person making a vow. He obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. If he says, I'm hereby a Nazir on condition that I can drink wine and I can become impure from corpses. So what is he saying? I guess he's saying, well, I want to be a Nazir and I want to be treated like I'm holier than other people, but really all I'm willing to give up is eating grapes and grape juice and cutting my hair, But in terms of the main things, wine and becoming impure from a corpse, I'm not willing to give that up. So let me be a Nazir according to my definition of Nazirus rather than the Torah's definition. What do we think the outcome is going to be? Let's see. If one says, I'm hereby a Nazir on the condition that I will be allowed to drink wine and that I may become ritually impure from corpses, i.e. he wishes to be a Nazir only with respect to the growth of his hair. He is a full-fledged Nazir, and he is prohibited from doing all the things that a Nazir is prohibited to do. He can't redefine what nazirus is. The Torah tells us what nazirus is. And if you're going to be a Nazir, you can't change the rules of nazirus. If one stated a vow of nazirus and then he said, I know that there is nazirus, but I do not know that a Nazir is prohibited from wine. So did he become a Nazir fully prohibited in all the prohibitions of nazirus? Yes, he did. He is prohibited in all the prohibitions of nazirus. But Rabbi Shimon permits him, since Rabbi Shimon holds that nazirus takes effect only if the person accepts all the relevant prohibitions. Right? If this guy didn't know what nazirus was and he said he's a Nazir, he thought there was only, the hair cutting and the corpses. He didn't realize that a Nazir can't drink wine. So the sages say, tough, you said you're a Nazir according to the Torah, you should have read the Torah. Rabbi Shimon says, nah, this guy didn't know what he was getting into. He didn't become a Nazir. That was sort of, we had two clauses, right? One tries to change the rules, not allowed. One didn't know what the rules were, he becomes a Nazir. Rabbi Shimon says no. Now the third clause. If one said, I know that a Nazir is prohibited from wine, but I thought that the sages would permit me to drink wine because I cannot live without wine. Or, I know what nazirus is. I know that a Nazir is not permitted to become impure from a corpse, but I thought that the sages would allow me to become a Nazir and become impure from corpses because I'm a grave digger, right? Because I'm a funeral attendant, because I'm a funeral director, right? Because I'm a mortician. Like this guy, it's his job to touch corpses. So he thought that aspect of Nazirus wouldn't apply to him. Did he become a full-fledged Nazir or not? So in that case, what happens? He is permitted, meaning he is not a Nazir. He never became a Nazir. If he thought that because of his job, all of the prohibitions of Nazirus would not apply to him, or because of his job, that particular attribute of Nazirus wouldn't apply to him, the sages say he never became a Nazir at all. He can drink wine, he can cut his hair, he never became a Nazir. Rabbi Shimon says he did become a Nazir. He did become a Nazir in thinking that one particular law wouldn't apply to him because of his job. According to Rabbi Shimon, no, he did become a Nazir. So it's interesting. In the previous two cases, as we'll see, Rabbi Shimon was lenient, the sages were stringent. In the last case, the sages were lenient and Rabbi Shimon was stringent. Let's see why. Gemara. In the second case of the Mishnah, right, there were three cases. First case, the guy says, I'm a Nazir on condition that I still can drink wine and touch corpses. Second case, I'm a Nazir, but I didn't know that you can't drink wine. Third case, I'm a Nazir, but I thought the sages would permit me to drink wine because I have a special condition that I have to drink wine all the time. Those are the three cases. In the second case of the Mishnah, right, which is, I know that there is Nazirus, but I did not know that a Nazir is not permitted to drink wine. In that second case, where one states that he did not know that the prohibitions of Nazirus include wine, Rabbi Shimon says the Nazirus does not take effect. Why? Because he did not include all of the prohibitions in his vow. So the Gemara therefore asks, well, then let Rabbi Shimon disagree with the first Tana in the first clause of the Mishnah as well, where he said, I'm hereby a Nazir on condition that I can still drink wine. Rabbi Shimon wasn't mentioned after the first clause, where the rabbi said, tough, you are a Nazir. And then Rabbi Shimon was silent. So the Gemara is saying, well, Rabbi Shimon should have disagreed with that Tana as well, and he would have been lenient and said to the guy he didn't become a Nazir in the first clause. Right? Let Rabbi Shimon disagree with the first Tana in the first clause in the Mishnah as well, where one said, I'm hereby a Nazir on condition that I may drink wine. And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, correct. Rabbi Shimon does disagree with the first Tana in the first clause of the Mishnah, and the Mishnah's statement that Rabbi Shimon permits him is referring to both the first and second clause of the Mishnah. Ravina said Rabbi Shimon does not disagree with the first Tana. Rabbi Shimon was silent, or the Mishnah was silent about Rabbi Shimon's position after the first clause, which says, a guy said, I'm hereby Nazir on condition that I can still drink wine. And the sages said, tough, you are a Nazir. So according to Ravina, Rabbi Shimon would agree with the sages. This man does become a Nazir. And what is the reason for that? It is because one was stipulating counter to that which is written in the Torah by attempting to limit an explicit Torah law. And with regard to anyone who stipulates counter to that which is written in the Torah, his stipulation is void, right? You can't say, I'm going to become a Torah Jew and keep Shabbos on condition that I am allowed to murder people. Because I'm good with everything in the Torah except killing. I got to be allowed to kill people. Yeah, tough. You can become a Shomer Shabbos Jew and you're not allowed to kill people. You can't make conditions for your own situation that are counter to Torah law. Where are we? Stipulation is void. So the statement, I am hereby a Nazir, that statement remains valid, right? In the first and second clause, he became a Nazir because he said he's a Nazir. It remains valid, and he is therefore a Nazir in all regards. Conversely, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi could have said to you, whoa. The phrase, on the condition, right? He made a conditional acceptance of Nazirus. So on the condition, it does not mean he accepts upon himself all the halachas of, all the laws of Nazirus, and then he adds a stipulation counter to that which is written in the Torah. Rather, it should be considered, like he said, apart from. Meaning, it is as though this man stated from the outset that he will be a Nazir apart from one particular aspect. And according to Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, Rabbi Shimon holds that since he is not trying to stipulate alternative halachos for full Nazirus, but is instead accepting a partial Nazirus, his vow takes effect. Meaning, this guy didn't become a Nazir. What he said is, I will be like a Nazir except that I can drink wine. What does that mean? He vowed that he will not cut his hair and he will not make himself impure for the dead. And then you could argue that he will abstain from raisins and any product of the grapevine other than wine. Or you could say when he says abstain from wine, he means all products of the grapevine. But in any case, he didn't become a Nazir. So when he finishes, the term of this vow, whatever length we're going to end up at, he doesn't have to bring the offerings of a Nazir. He didn't become a Nazir. But he did take a prohibitionary vow that he will abstain from certain things, which cutting his hair and becoming impure for the dead. That's how Rabbi Shimon interprets this guy who says, I will become a Nazir so long as I can, so long as I can drink wine. He didn't become a Nazir, but he became like a Nazir with respect to the other prohibitions. Now the Gemara comments, it is taught in the Tosefta, Nazir 2:2, in accordance with the opinion of Ravina, right? So other sages agree with Ravina, who said that Rabbi Shimon does not disagree with the sages in the first clause. This guy who says, I'm hereby a Nazir as long as I can drink wine, he didn't become a Nazir at all. Ravina says, the Tosefta says that Ravina's interpretation is correct, that Rabbi Shimon agrees with the sages in that situation. If one said, I'm hereby Nazir on the condition that I will be allowed to drink wine and that I may become ritually impure from corpses, he is a Nazir and he is prohibited from all of them because he stipulates counter to that which is written in the Torah. And with regard to anyone who stipulates counter to that which is written in the Torah, his stipulation is void. Now, can you take a vow to be like a Nazir and just say that explicitly? Sure, that you could do. You can't say, I am a Nazir as long as I can keep drinking wine. Or rather, you can't say, I am hereby a Nazir on condition that I can keep drinking wine. The I am hereby a Nazir holds. You became a Nazir. And your condition, which is counter to what is in the Torah, just gets disregarded. But you could say, I am hereby like a Nazir, except that I'll keep drinking wine, and that's when you would have taken a vow, no touching, that I won't touch corpses and I won't cut my hair. But you won't have to bring the offerings at the end because you never became a Nazir in that scenario. New subject. The final clause of the Mishnah, right? The third clause, this was about the person who said, I'm hereby a Nazir, right? He became a Nazir, but I thought that I would be allowed to keep drinking wine or I would be allowed to touch corpses, become impure from a corpse, because, this guy's, his profession is wine taster or his profession is mortician. So he thought that for him, his situation would be different. So the final clause of the Mishnah teaches that if one says, I know that a Nazir is prohibited from drinking wine, but I thought that the sages would permit me to drink because of my profession, right, as a wine taster. So the rabbis say that the vow is void. He never became a Nazir. But Rabbi Shimon disagrees, and he says he did become a Nazir. And the Gemara asks, but didn't you say in the earlier clause of the Mishnah that with regard to one who says, but I did not know that a Nazir is prohibited from wine, the first Tana holds that he is prohibited and Rabbi Shimon permits him. So why did they switch now, right? That the rabbi of the Mishnah became lenient in the third clause and Rabbi Shimon became stringent. Why did that happen? What is the difference between the two cases? And the Gemara answers, well, let's change the text and say that in the final clause as well, the sages prohibit him and Rabbi Shimon permits him. So that's an easy way out. Well, we kind of, the rabbis who disagree with Rabbi Shimon were stringent, so it must be that in the third case they're stringent as well, and Rabbi Shimon was always lenient, so he must be lenient in the third case as well. That's one way to explain it. Change the Mishnah, not preferred. And if you wish, say instead, actually, we do not reverse the opinions. We leave the text as it is. And instead, we distinguish between the two cases, as, now we're on 11b. In the earlier clause where one said, I did not know that a Nazir is prohibited from drinking wine, that is a case where he vowed to become a Nazir with regard to only one of the prohibitions. And the difference of opinion is like this. According to the rabbis who say that even if he vowed to become a Nazir with regard to only one of the prohibitions of Nazirus, he is nevertheless a Nazir. In that case, he is prohibited by all, and in that case, he is prohibited by all the prohibitions, despite not knowing about the prohibition against consuming wine. According to Rabbi Shimon, who said he is not a Nazir unless he takes a vow of Nazirus with regard to all of them, he remains permitted, right? According to Rabbi Shimon, you have to know what all the attributes of the Nazir are at the time that you make the vow, or the vow doesn't take hold. But the majority who disagree with Rabbi Shimon said, well, look, the Nazir is spelled out in the Torah. You should have known what it means. If you say you're a Nazir, the fact that you thought, that one of the prohibitions didn't apply to you, tough. You're a Nazir and you are prohibited. Conversely, the last clause addresses one who vowed to become a Nazir with regard to all of the clauses, thereby accepting upon himself all the laws of Nazirus, but now he wishes to request dissolution of one of the prohibitions because of his profession. He's a wine taster or he's a mortician, and he thought that a halakhic authority can dissolve one aspect of Nazirus. He knows that a Nazir is prohibited to drink wine or to become impure for the dead. He took that on when he became a Nazir, but he thought that the sages would dissolve for him one of those prohibitions because of his special circumstances. Now the Gemara explains, according to the rabbis who say that even if he vowed Nazirus with regard to only one of the prohibitions of Nazirus, he is nevertheless a full-fledged Nazir. In that case too, when he requests a halakhic authority to dissolve one of them, he becomes permitted to engage in all of the behaviors forbidden to a Nazir. Why? Because just as the acceptance of one part of Nazirus causes one to be bound by all of the laws of Nazirus, dissolution of one element of Nazirus nullifies the entire Nazirus. Right? If all you knew was that a Nazir is not allowed to drink wine, and you say, I'm hereby a Nazir, I'm ready to take on not drinking wine, you became a Nazir, and you became a Nazir with respect to all of it. And you can't cut your hair, and you can't become impure for the dead, and you will have to bring the offerings. If you went to a halakhic authority and said, please nullify for me one of the prohibitions, I need to keep drinking wine, I'll stay a Nazir, but please nullify for me the prohibition on drinking wine, the halakhic authority can only, if he nullifies that one, he nullifies all of it. You're either it's all or nothing, right? With Nazirus, it's all or nothing. You can't be a partial Nazir. So either you're a full-fledged Nazir or you're not a Nazir at all. And according to Rabbi Shimon, who said that he is not a Nazir unless he takes a vow of Nazirus with regard to all of the prohibitions, when he requests dissolution of one prohibition, none of the prohibitions are permitted until he requests dissolution of all of the prohibitions of Nazirus. Due to this, the Mishna teaches, and Rabbi Shimon prohibits him. And if you wish, say instead, the rabbis and Rabbi Shimon disagree with regard to vows impeded by circumstances beyond one's control. And their disagreement is in the dispute between Shmuel and Rav Asi. As we learned in a Mishnah that we're going to encounter on page 20b that we encountered in the last tractate in Nedarim, on page 20b, the sages dissolved 4 types of vows without the requirement of a request to a halakhic authority. The first category. So these are vows that if you make a vow under these circumstances, it's not a vow. You uttered the words of a vow, but it's immediately dissolved because in these situations, the vow never takes hold, right? What are these situations of automatic dissolution of the vow? Automatic nullification of the vow. What is it? It dissolved, right? So the sages dissolved these vows. So it's like as soon as you made it, it's automatically dissolved. What are these 4 types of vows that are automatically dissolved? The first is a vow of exhortation, where one employs a vow to urge another to perform some action, right? I need, I need, I can't even think of a good baseball player now. Whatever, I need a member of the Dodgers. I need Justin Turner to hit a home run. So I say, Justin, if you hit a home run, I'll become a Nazir. Yeah, so, and you're saying that to Justin Turner, not just some fan in the stands. So you're speaking the words of a vow, but you're really using it to egg on another person, to encourage another person. You didn't mean to take a vow. It wasn't about the vow. It was about this person, what you want him to do. That vow is automatically dissolved. Second category, vows of exaggeration, where one utters a vow that is dependent upon some outlandish claim. Right, so I will take a vow. I will become a Nazir if every member of the Dodgers hits a home run today. That's never going to happen. It's never happened. Will never happen. It's just statistically impossible. So this was obviously exaggeration. So you would think, why does this even need to be said? Since that's never going to happen, why would he ever become a Nazir? But it would even work is, I will become a Nazir if every member of the Dodgers doesn't hit a home run today. Like, that's crazy. Obviously, they're not going to hit a home run, but the exaggerated nature of the condition actually dissolves the vow immediately. The example that's given here, where one utters a vow that is dependent upon some outlandish claim, like, I should be bound by a vow if I did not see a square snake. Since he knows that there are no square snakes, it is evident that he is not serious in taking this vow, and the vow is dissolved immediately. Without having to go to a sage, without having to go to a halakhic authority and ask him to dissolve the vow is automatically dissolved. Third category, vows that are unintentional, where one vows for a particular reason, and he later discovers that he was mistaken with regard to the facts. He didn't really have the facts, right? He vowed in a situation as he perceived it, but his perception was all wrong. In that case, it was an unintentional vow, and it does not take hold. It's dissolved immediately. And fourth, are vows whose fulfillment are impeded by circumstances beyond one's control, right? So he wanted to complete the vow, and then something, the world changed, and he's not able to complete the vow. The vow is actually dissolved for him because these are circumstances beyond his control. The Gemara relates the dispute between Shmuel and Rav Asi. And Rav Yehuda said that Rav Asi said, these 4 vows require a request made to the halakhic authorities to dissolve them, right? Yes, these vows will be dissolved. They absolutely can be dissolved, but it's not auto-dissolve. You actually have to go to your local rabbi, who is a halakhic authority, and ask him to dissolve the vow for you. He'll dissolve it, but it's not dissolved until you go make that request. And Rav Yehuda related, when I stated this halacha of Rav Asi before Shmuel, he said to me, the Tana teaches that the sages dissolve them, and you said that they require a request to be made to a particular halakhic authority? No, Shmuel holds that they're dissolved automatically. You don't have to make the request. And the Gemara continues its explanation. So the dispute between the rabbis and Rabbi Shimon in the last clause of our Mishnah is also with regard to this law, whether you have to actually have it dissolved or not. This case is referring to a kind of a vow impeded by circumstances beyond one's control, as he claims that he has no choice but to drink wine, because his profession is wine taster, or to contract impurity from corpses, because his profession is mortician. So the rabbis hold in accordance with the opinion of Shmuel, and therefore the vow is dissolved automatically and this person never became a Nazir at all. And Rabbi Shimon holds in accordance with the opinion of Rav Asi that one must make a request to a halakhic authority to dissolve the vow, and he remains a Nazir until he goes and makes that request. They'll grant it to him, but he's going to remain a Nazir until he makes the request. And that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 4. Here's Mishnah number 5. If one says, I'm hereby a Nazir, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir. What? Shave a Nazir? What does that mean? I'm hereby a Nazir, okay? I have just taken a vow. If I didn't specify the time, then it's for 30 days. That I will abstain from products of the grapevine. I will not make myself impure by touching a corpse. I will not shave or cut my hair. And at the conclusion of the term, I will bring the offerings of a Nazir to the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. He's saying, I'm hereby a Nazir, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir. What does shave a Nazir mean? This is a phrase that is used to mean that he will also pay for the offerings that a Nazir brings when he cuts his hair, right? So what he has done is he's added to his vow of Nazirs. I'm hereby a Nazir. I'm obligated in all those things. And when I'm done being a Nazir, I'll have to bring the offerings. And I will pay for the offerings of some other Nazir. Right? So he's taken on a lot. And then another person heard this guy say, I am hereby a Nazir, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir, meaning to pay for the offerings that some other Nazir will bring. And then the second guy heard the vow made by the first guy, and he says, and I, meaning, and I too am a Nazir. And then he adds, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir. So then the other is also a Nazir and is also obligated to pay for the offerings of some other Nazir. Now, if these two are perspicacious, right, if they're smart, and they wish to limit their expenses, they shave each other, meaning they pay for each other's offerings, right? So they pay for each other's offerings, so they limit their expenses. They may pay for each other's offerings so that the additional vows will not cost them anything. But if they're not perspicacious, if this arrangement did not occur to them and each brought his own offerings, then they must still shave other Nazirites. They must pay for the offerings of other Nazirites, right? So the first guy said, I am a Nazir, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir. He becomes a Nazir. When his Nazir ends, he has to bring offerings, and he has to pay for the offerings of another person. The second guy heard the vow that the first one made, and he said, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir. So the Mishnah says this guy also becomes a Nazir and also has to pay for some other Nazir, the offerings of a Nazir, when some other Nazir concludes his nazirus. And if they're smart, they can pay for each other's offerings. Now, Gemara is going to analyze, why did the second guy become obligated in everything? And at what point did he become obligated in everything? Did he become obligated as soon as he said, and I? Right? First guy said, I'm a Nazir and I will shave a Nazir. If the second guy just said, and I, did he become a Nazir? Did he become a Nazir and obligated to pay for somebody else's offerings? did he just obligate himself to pay for somebody's offerings? If he only said, and I. When he said, and I, and it is incumbent on me to shave a Nazir, how did it all fall out? Here's the Gemara. A dilemma was raised before the sages. If one said, I am hereby a Nazir, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir as well, and another person heard him and said only, and I, then what is the law? Do we say that and I indicates acceptance of the entire statement of the first one, which would mean he is both a Nazir and must shave a Nazir? Or perhaps it indicates acceptance of only half the statement of the first speaker. If you say it indicates acceptance of only half of the statement, does it indicate acceptance of the first clause, I am hereby a Nazir? Or does it indicate acceptance of the second clause, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir? Now the Gemara suggests, come and hear a proof from the Mishnah. If a second person said, and I, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir, then if they are wise, they shave each other. Now, from the fact that it says, and I, and it is incumbent upon me, you can learn from this that, and I, indicates acceptance of only half the statement, as otherwise he would not need to add the second part. Now, the sages say in response to this attempted proof, yes, this proves that it indicates acceptance of only half the statement. However, the other question still has not been answered. Is he referring to the first part of the original statement or to the last part? And the Gemara answers, this can be learned from the Mishnah itself. From the fact that it says, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir, one can learn from this that and I indicates acceptance of the beginning of the statement to become a Nazir, which is why one has to add that he must also pay for the offerings of a Nazir, that he will shave a Nazir in order to become obligated in the same way as the first person. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yehoshua, said to Rava, from where do you know that this is so? That the words and I are referring to the first part of the statement. Actually, I will say to you that and I is referring to the entire statement. And if you claim otherwise because he added, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir, well, the explanation of what he is saying is, and it is incumbent on me to do this matter. In other words, when the second person said and I, he became obligated in the entire utterance of the first person, that he will become a Nazir and that he will shave a Nazir. When the second person said, and I, he became obligated in both those things. When he added, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir, all he was doing is clarifying what he undertook. It was kind of extra words that didn't change his obligation. He already became obligated in both clauses of the first person's vow when he said, and I. As if you do not view it this way, then with regard to that which is taught in the last clause, in the next Mishnah we're going to be learning tomorrow night, Saturday night, right? Mishnah number 6 of this chapter, where one says, it is incumbent upon me to shave half a Nazir, and another heard that and said, and I, it is incumbent upon me to shave half a Nazir, then are there two statements? The Mishnah is addressing only a single vow. Rather, what is he saying by using the words, it is incumbent upon me? He is referring to the whole matter. Here too, in this Mishnah, when he says, and it is incumbent upon me, he is referring to the whole matter. I'm almost done. If you have questions or comments, get them in. So Rava said to him, how can these cases be compared? Granted, if you say that in the first clause it is necessary to teach both parts of the statement, and in the latter clause it is not necessary to teach both parts of the statement, then it can be said that he taught the unnecessary latter clause, the second clause, due to the necessary first clause. And it is typical for a Mishnah to phrase both of its sections in the same style. But if you say that it is not necessary to teach both parts of the statement in the first clause, and it is also not necessary to teach both parts of the statement in the latter clause, as one has accepted the other's entire statement by saying, and I, would the Tana teach an unnecessary first clause and teach an unnecessary latter clause? Since the addition of and it is incumbent upon me is not required in the latter Mishnah, it must be necessary in this Mishnah, as the inference of Rava is correct. That was confusing, but let's say that the bottom line goes like this. I am hereby Nazir, and it is incumbent upon me to shave. If one said, I am hereby Nazir, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir, and another person heard and said, and I, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir, they are both Nazirs, and both must pay for the offerings of a Nazir. If they are smart, each of them pay for the offerings of the other, and if they do not so, they are both obligated to become a Nazir and pay for the offerings of some other Nazir. And the word, and I, indicates acceptance of the beginning of the statement. If one said, I am hereby Nazir, and it is incumbent upon me to shave a Nazir, and the other person heard and just said, and I, then the second person is obligated to observe nazirus, but he is not required to shave a Nazir, since his statement refers only to the vow of nazirus. And that's how the law came out on that question. All right, let's see if we've got questions or comments on this super clear Mishnah and Gemara. Okay, Nazir 11. Joseph, in all these cases, I'm wondering why the law wasn't that the rabbis institute that one has to be completely clear and simply say, I am hereby a Nazir, unless we find out later in the tractate maybe. That would certainly make it so much simpler, right? I mean, if you want to become a Nazir, you have to say absolutely clear words that you became a Nazir, and if you didn't speak it clearly, then you didn't become a Nazir. Why didn't they do it that way? And I would suggest that the answer is because becoming a Nazir is a explicit written Torah law. And in matters of written Torah, right, laws that are doraisa instead of derabanan, right, laws that are written in the Torah, questions of uncertainty are treated stringently. Since there's a possibility you became a Nazir, we're going to have to be stringent with you unless we have a very compelling reason to excuse you from Nazirs. As opposed to, laws that are rabbinic, where in cases of uncertainty, we're going to be lenient. That would be my suggestion. Bill, so in the view of Rabbi Shimon, the man who made the conditional nazirus, not really a Nazir, but like a Nazir, except in the following ways, would it be improper for such a one to bring the offerings in the sense that the priest should refuse to accept them, or do they just become free will offerings? Very good, great question, right? So we're talking about the person who doesn't become a Nazir. He just wants to take on some of the prohibitions of nazirus, right? He wants to keep drinking wine because he's a wine taster, but he's going to become like a Nazir in the other things. Maybe he'll abstain from other aspects of the grapevine. He won't cut his hair, and he won't make himself impure for the dead. So therefore, he's going to just take a vow to not do those things. Did he also take a vow to bring offerings like a Nazir? If that's unclear, right, you can't. But let's say he consecrated the animals that he's going to bring as a Nazir, so he no longer has access to them. I'm not sure exactly, Bill, but I think you've suggested the right approach. It'll be something like that. They become free will offerings, whether it's a peace offering or a thanks offering, something like that. Now a Nazir brings a sin offering, actually. So maybe he's bringing a sin offering and it's not attached to his nazirus, but, we all have skeletons in our closet that could justify his sin offering. And of course, all of that would only work when the temple is standing. Renee. So these people who in modern times have declared Hareni Nazir are really making a nader, right, making a vow like nazirus. Or is it not even a valid nader because we are all presumed to be tameh? Right, we're all presumed to be tameh because we don't know where all the dead bodies are buried in the world. Right? There's no way to know when Israel had the temple standing, and you couldn't enter the temple unless you were in a state of tahara, ritual purity. Then throughout the land of Israel, people would be very careful to mark anywhere that a body was buried or that a body was lost, like in an area, to make sure that people wouldn't walk over it and become tameh. Now that the temple has been destroyed for a long time and no one cares about these laws, certainly the non-Jews don't, and we all live in the exile, we're all presumed to be in a state of tuma, and so you couldn't go to the temple, right? And you've already become. I mean, and you become tameh from a corpse, right? Which would interrupt nazirus. So this is what Renee is asking. Right. So if somebody says they're a nazir now, I don't know. We just have to find like the definitive law on that. If in modern times somebody says, I am hereby a nazir, what has he said? Is it that it's impossible to become a nazir and so this is a meaningless statement? Or are we going to impose something on him? I'm not sure. But, as a practical matter, don't say that and mean it, right? I made that statement in the context of teaching. If you find yourself saying that for some reason, you immediately add bli nader. And I didn't make a vow. I did not mean to make a vow. Okay. Tom, what if you take a valid vow of nazirus and then there's some kind of disaster leaving only wine to drink? Does the rule of violating the Torah to save a life come into play here? That's a really good question. I think that you certainly drink the wine to save the life. The question is, does it somehow cancel the nazirus? Let's assume the temple is standing. Or rather, you had a good reason to drink the wine, but you just, have interrupted your nazirus. You bring, I think, a sin offering for having done that, and then you start over. Or does pikuach nefesh, saving a life, just override the nazirus and cancel the nazirus? I'm not sure. It's a really good question. I'm not sure. Ifa, Samson was made a nazir by his parents when an infant, unable to agree. Very good. Situation beyond his control. I thought he got drunk with Delilah regularly, but only lost his strength when his hair was cut without his permission. Why? I have not read this story recently, but if he's a nazir from birth, he's not supposed to drink wine all of his life. If he does drink wine, what then? He probably has to bring an offering and then resume his nazirus. But I got to study that. Nina's probably a better person to ask because she's been doing Nach Yomi, where that's a nice program where you read one chapter a day of the entire Bible after the Torah, right? So a Hebrew Bible is called a Tanakh. That's the Taf of Torah, right? And then the Nun of Nevi'im, right? The prophets. And then the Chaf of Ketuvim, the writings, right? So Nach Yomi is reading after the Torah, like starting with the book of Joshua and just reading one chapter a day until you finish the whole thing. So Nina has read the story. I can't remember offhand how to answer that. And finally, Jeannie says, can a nazir only be shaved by another nazir? No. That was just a kind of expression. When you say, I will shave a nazir, it's really just like a saying, and what it means, and it's clearly understood to mean by everybody in that context, is that you will pay for the offerings. It's like a term of art, and it just means that you will pay for the offerings of a nazir that he brings on the conclusion of his nazirus. I don't think it's spelled out who shaves the nazir. I think he can go to the barber or do it himself. As far as I know, it's just that he can't have the hair cut or cut it until then. I mean, a nice question would be, if a nazir is prohibited to, cut or shave his hair, is it actually he's prohibited to cut or shave his own hair? Or is it that he's prohibited to cut or shave hair? Now, we know that he can't have somebody else cut his hair before his nazirus ends. Is there somehow a prohibition that he's not allowed to work as a barber and cut other people's hair during his nazirus? But I don't think that that's true. I think it's simply he can't cut his own hair. And Sharon says, if we assume that we are all tameh due to a corpse, why are Kohanim still today so fastidious about corpse contact? And it's probably for the same reason that in Torah prohibitions were stringent, right? So we're all kind of presumed to be tameh, but we can't be sure that we are tameh. It's just we can't assume we're tahor. But in that case of uncertainty, the Kohanim, who must maintain their purity, they will go that extra distance. And even though they might, they're presumed to be tameh, but they might not be tameh. In case they are tahor, they're not going to make themselves tameh by entering the cemetery, except for a very close relative. And probably there's more to it than that. I just don't know offhand. And it might be one of those things that's really a minhag, a custom that has taken on the strength of law over the centuries. But I'm not sure about that. I haven't researched it. Okay, that's what I've got for us today. With God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow night, Saturday night, about an hour after Shabbos ends here in LA. So Shabbos is going to end, I think, around 6-ish, right? About 6 p.m., a little after. So hopefully I'll get on the air by about 7 p.m. tomorrow night. And everybody's busy on Saturday night, so we'll try to just, move efficiently through the daf. And make it more of a 45-minute type of class. Okay, have a great night and good Shabbos.